Don't bring me problems, bring me solutions. Do you think that's the sort of thing that Jesus would say? It's what we sometimes said at team meetings at work. And the thought behind it was, don't come and moan about the problems without making suggestions how to solve them. And it's a tough message, but it encourages individuals to take ownership and participate within that team effort. So I think, yes, this is perhaps what Jesus was saying when, but not quite in those terms. The problem, 5,000 people, and that was just the men. If you added the women and children, there could have been nearer 15,000 people. And they travelled from far and wide after learning that Jesus, this man who heals the sick, was on the east shore of the Sea of Galilee. If we take the story literally, they must have just up and gone and travelled quickly. They were completely unprepared because no one except one small boy had brought any food. The disciples had compassion on the people, just as Jesus had had compassion on the people. The disciples recognised that it was getting late in the day and the people were very likely to be getting hungry. Jesus was tired. He'd experienced rejection and criticism in his hometown. And on top of that, he'd learnt of the death of his dear cousin John in a most gruesome way. He wanted solitude and quiet, away from the hustle and bustle, and so had sailed across the Sea of Galilee, hoping for a quieter place on that eastern shore. But instead of time for himself, he was faced with a multitude of people. And his reaction was selfless. He put aside his grief and he ministered to the people, healing those who were sick. And this must have cost him a lot, not only physically but also emotionally and spiritually. I wonder how we would have reacted. The disciples, having recognised the problem, the 5,000 people, came to Jesus, but they came only with the problem, not with any possible solution. Yes, they had compassion on the people, but were they also worried possibly about crowd control? I wonder if that had been part of their risk assessment. The people needed food, but where to get it? The disciples had come up with a problem, but were unable to focus on a solution. Their intention was on target. Let's feed the people before all their stomachs started rumbling. And Jesus responds to them, as he often does, in a completely unexpected way. He throws the problem back at them and seemingly asks them to do the impossible. You feed them. You feed all 5,000 or 15,000, however many you want to count. Impossible, they say. All we have are 5 loaves and 2 fish. And again, he responds in an unexpected way. Rather than saying, well, that's not enough to feed 5 people, let alone 5,000. Jesus takes all that they offer and into his hands. It becomes more than enough for 5,000 or even 15,000, and even more. In that boy's hands, it was simply his packed lunch. But after it had been given to Jesus, it becomes a feast. It is through Jesus that the miracle has happened. It is after Jesus has taken the bread and those fish, given thanks, and broken them so that everyone is fed. It is through Jesus that miracles can happen. How often today do we come up with a problem? How do we get more people into church? How do we go out and witness to the community? How do we combat climate change? There may be many, many other problems that you can all think of. We may have our ideas of what we think is needed, or perhaps what the problem is but cannot work out the solution. We may think the problem is too vast for us to begin to deal with. However, all that is needed is for us to offer God what we have, however small or insignificant it is. We may wrongly assume that what we have is no use, it's too small, it's not what's needed. But in God's hands, our small can be multiplied so that all have more than enough. God has compassion on us. He recognises our needs and He provides. Through God, our seemingly nothing can become more than enough. And in turn, God uses us, as small and as insignificant as we may feel we are, and multiplies beyond our imagination. Those disciples were Jesus' closest friends. They had a desire to help in a very practical way. We too may be followers of Christ, and we have a desire to serve in many different ways, often in practical ways. Jesus can take our desire to serve, and rather than simply answer us in the way we expect, or perhaps the way we prefer, saying, yes, okay, go ahead with what you think, what you suggest, He turns that desire inside out and challenges us. Okay, so you've outlined the problem. What have you got to solve it? If we offer whatever we can, however small or inadequate we feel it is, even if we don't understand how it can be used, then God will accept whatever we offer. He will bless it and He will break it. God will make whatever we offer ready to be used. What is also remarkable is that after Jesus took the 5 loaves and the 2 fish and blessed them and broke them, He gave them back to the disciples. Here you are, now feed the people. One man couldn't possibly have got round 5,000 people. There was a team of them, at least 12 of them, to carry all the baskets of leftovers. Jesus had performed the miracle, and the psalmist tells us that God lifts us up. He is the source of our daily needs. He remains near to those who call on Him, and He hears our cries and saves us. God provides, but He gives to us to give back to others. God will take what we offer, He will bless it and break it, but He will give it back to us to distribute to those in need. God provides for us more than enough for everyone, and we are to distribute, to go out and to share that with others. Amen.